Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. Let's get started. So, before I go over my top 10 games for week 2, my predictions for them, I'll be doing that at a different podcast. But for this podcast, since I went over previewing the NFL for this upcoming week, I want to go ahead and talk about something else. So, we all tend to do this, whether you're a fan or in the media, and I've been guilty of it myself. We're all too quick to overreact to first games or week ones of the season. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some things that people have said or are thinking and overreacting to, and then I'll say if it's an overreaction or if it's not an overreaction. So number one, Oklahoma is not a championship team or even a playoff team. My verdict there is overreaction. Remember last year, Oklahoma started off 1-2 with the surprising loss at home to Kansas State and then lost to Iowa State, which is a good loss on the road. But everyone said, "Oh, this is gonna be a rebuilding year." Then they won the rest of their games and after the Texas game looked dominant in all of them. So that's why people were high on them coming to this season, including myself finally, because I thought, okay, at least their defense is finally improved along with the good offense. But obviously that was not the case in week 1, but that's something they could fix. So I need to see more games from the Sooners in order to then determine, okay, yeah, is this going to be a season problem or is that just a week 1 problem? 2, Iowa State is overrated. Verdict: overreaction. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, Iowa State struggles against Northern Iowa in the recent years. Maybe it being an in-state rival game makes it that way. But even if they play someone else under Matt Campbell, who's a good coach, they are always rusty in the first game and kind of a bad September team. Kind of like Belichick, they're trying to figure things out in September. That's why they lost to Louisiana last year. So this is not that surprising per se. Now, if they lose to Iowa this week, even though Iowa is a very good team, then you might start to see the argument gain a little more steam. We'll see. 3, North Carolina won't win their division this season. Verdict: overreaction. No, what I saw on Friday with North Carolina did concern me. Losing both, Michael Carter Williams, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, those are big losses. And they lost Dwight Brown, one of the wide receivers for them as well. So it's a lot of new pieces. But what concerned me more is that North Carolina offensive line. And Virginia Tech got 6 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. That was very conservative. I'm a Tar Heel fan. But the thing, though, is that there's no dominant team in this division. That's why I say they could still win it. Because Miami, got blown out by Alabama. They can beat Miami. Yeah, Virginia Tech has the win on them. But if Virginia Tech stumbles a few games, then North Carolina's right back in discussion. And then besides, maybe Virginia, I don't think, Duke and Georgia Tech are, with the way they perform, are obviously not going to win a division. So I feel like it's too early to say that they won't win a division this season. Now, they're not going to be probably as good as a lot of people hoped or thought they could be, but they'll at least still be decent. 4, Ohio State will blow out Oregon. Verdict: not overreaction. So this is basically a sneak peek of what my prediction would be for the game. But everyone was saying watch out for Oregon to win the Pac-12, at the beginning of the season, or even before the season started, everyone was saying watch out for Oregon to win the Pac-12. You need to be a playoff contender. Reese Davis on game saying I have Oregon making the playoffs and beating Ohio State on the road. But there's a reason why I had Oregon down for at least 2 losses this season and not in the playoff discussion. Oregon is not a great program anymore. Let's just face it. They have good recruiting rankings and all, but they're just not a good program anymore. They're a good program, but not a great. There's a difference. It takes quarterbacks like Marcus Mariota and Justin Herbert to kind of make them elite, since their defense it comes and goes, So that's why I'm saying this is not a reaction. In my opinion, I'd be surprised if Oregon, can keep Ohio State within one position. If not, downright upset them. 5, Texas is back. Verdict: overreaction. We have been fooled way too many times before. Yes, this was a good win for Sarkisian, and yes, they dominated a respectable Group of 5 opponent. But after that Sugar Bowl win against Georgia, and former Texas quarterback Sam Elliott was like, "Oh, we're back," and they haven't done anything since then. Um, I feel like this is still kind of premature uh, to say Texas is back. So I kind of want to see more games for them before saying that. 6. Clemson will not get to the playoffs. Verdict. Not overreaction. This is not saying Clemson will be bad this year. I think they can run the table in the ACC, but the problem is the ACC sucks. Everyone is saying that the Big 12 without Oklahoma and Texas would be the worst P5 conference, but I'll get that into another time. But right now, it's like ACC is making a case for that. Like I said, UNC and Miami both lost. Duke and Georgia Tech lost to G5 teams. Now there are positives, like Florida State looks to be improved, giving Notre Dame a fight. While North Carolina and Boston College both play bad opponents. I mean, you figure they could potentially be sneaky opponents, but I doubt they'll be top 15 or 10 caliber. So it's going to be so Clemson has to hope Georgia loses 2 games, and then hope that the Pac-12 doesn't have or Big 12 combination doesn't have a playoff representative who wants any chance to get in. So I feel like Clemson will probably miss the playoffs this year because of that loss to Georgia. 7. The bottom teams of the SEC is becoming noticeable. Verdict, no overreaction. Usually you have like that one bad team like Vanderbilt who would just win one game or something like that, and that's still the case for this. Yeah, and that's still because Vanderbilt, lost to FCS team. But there's some things that concern me with SEC in week 1. Like um, Missouri needed a field goal just to kind of survive, going by 2 positions against Central Michigan at home. Mississippi State needed a 21-point comeback in the fourth quarter to beat Louisiana Tech. Arkansas was struggling at halftime against Rice before finally pulling away. So while the SEC will always be, the best conference and the top teams' conference are elite, the bottom of this conference is starting to get exposed, in my opinion. And I feel like, while that's good for the rest of the P5 conferences, because it means SEC is like, human and not perfect. If I'm the SEC, it's like that's not ideal. 8. Don't schedule an FCS opponent. Verdict. Not overreaction. We all know a few FCS teams get upset every now and then, but I think it's becoming more and more risky to schedule one. So, and this is so far because I feel like there could be FCS upset throughout the season. At some point, you never know. But as of week 1, there's a bunch of close calls and upsets. So to go over through the close calls first, Wyoming only won by 3 against Montana State. Kansas only won by 3 against South Dakota. Iowa State, as we mentioned, only won by 6 to Northern Iowa. Oklahoma State only won by 7 versus Missouri State, although I heard they were playing at the backup quarterback, but still, should win that. Ball State, New Mexico, and UTEP all won just by 10, against their FCS opponents. And then for the actual upsets, it starts off with Montana upsetting 20th ranked Washington by 6 points in a low-scoring 13-7 game. No one saw that coming. I did not see that coming. Montana is a very good FCS program, so don't get me wrong there. But still, like that's pretty pathetic if you're Washington. And East Tennessee State not only upsets SEC Vanderbilt, but then beats them by 20. So that's a very good upset there. Eastern Washington wins by 2 in double overtime against UNLV. South Dakota beats Colorado State by 19, blowing them out. Holy Cross beats UConn by 10, which UConn might be the worst FBS team either than UMass this season. And then UC Davis beat Tulsa, who was in the American Conference title game last year, and I thought could potentially get there again this year. They beat Tulsa in Oklahoma by 2 points. So there's a lot of different upsets there. Like usually, you may get one FCS upset week, maybe 2, but to get basically 6 upsets there, that's pretty impressive. And some of them were blowouts. Like that's pretty alarming. So you have to be pretty sure that FCS team is horrible, not like the top of their FCS program, if you're going to schedule them. 9. Miami is overrated. Verdict. Not overreaction. Some people thought this would be a close game, and I thought maybe for a half, but I knew Miami couldn't stop because Miami couldn't stop Clemson, North Carolina, Oklahoma State last year. They gave like 35 plus points to them, so I knew that Alabama was going to score against them. And I feel like Miami benefits from playing in a mediocre at best ACC, because if they were like in the SEC, for example, or the Big Ten right now, I feel like they'd be below 500 consistently. So Miami is still not a great program right now. It's been a while since that's been the case. And then last but not least, 10. Is UCLA the favorite to win the Pac-12? Verdict. Overreaction. If UCLA was in the Pac-12 North, then I would say yes. But the South is clearly the better division here in that conference. So while it may appear UCLA looks like the best and they're very good this year, they've definitely improved. Like, there's a reason why I thought they would at least get bowl eligible and maybe win like 7 games or something. Because I knew they'd improve based on what I saw last year. But to do what they've done so far has been even more impressive than I could imagine. But they still have their rival USC on the road. And they still have other two top 25 teams, Utah on the road and then Arizona State at home. Colorado will be no pushover per se. And then Arizona, as we saw, they actually look decent. So that's a very tough division there. So I'm not just going to automatically say, yes, they're going to win division. I don't want to jump the bandwagon there quite yet. I need to see a little bit more. So something I haven't had a chance to talk about this, but the Big 12, according to multiple sources, are reviewing the applications of 4 teams, and at the earliest on Friday, they could officially invite them to the Big 12. And the 4 teams being BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston. Now, as far as when they join, it's all up in the air right now. There's different scenarios. Since BYU is independent, they can join whenever, most likely. But the other 3 teams in the American Conference, they want you to wait at least 27 months before paying the X and V. So you know I've been hearing a lot. Oh, the Big 12 is going to be the worst Power 5 conference. In fact, I don't think they'll even be a Power 5 conference anymore. No, I think they will remain a Power 5 conference until I'm proven otherwise. But to address the first part of that argument or claim, with Texas and Oklahoma gone, there's no replacing them. That is clear. That's not what we're arguing about. However, I feel like the Big 12 got the best replacements they could find. Yeah, Boise State, Memphis, SMU are the next 3 options you consider, but they got the best 4 teams. Now, the Big 12 is not going to be the SEC, obviously, or the Big 10, obviously. But are we sure the ACC and the Pac-12 are that much, if not any better than the Big 12 with this new format of the Big 12? I mean, you take out Clemson and ACC, what do you got? I mean, like I said, I've already talked about how Duke and Georgia Tech lost to G5 opponents. North Carolina may be disappointing their openers. It's just a mediocre conference, and they have the lowest money television rights wise out of all the P5 conferences, which is a good indicator that they're not that strong. And then the Pac-12, USC used to be a powerhouse, and so did Oregon. Now they're just kind of Washington at times. So now just kind of And then the Pac-12 North, is horrible. I mean, Stanford got blown by Kansas State. California lost at home to Nevada. Washington State lost at home to Utah State. We already talked about Washington's upset. Oregon's close. So Pac-12, they might be a little bit better, but I don't see by that much. And then we already know why the other 4 teams be good, so I'm not going to get into that. But one thing I want to do mention real quick is that in college, I know football is driving money, but college basketball, which is the second biggest sport in college, the Big 12 will be the best conference, hands down. No more ACC being the best conference, or even recently the Big 10 being the best conference. It will be the Big 12 here. Kansas, perennial tournament team, usually top 10, 15 caliber. Baylor won the title last year. West Virginia, perennial tournament team. Texas Tech, perennial tournament team as of recent years. Oklahoma State, Iowa State, if they get that star player, like Cunningham or Marcus Smart or George Niang for Iowa State or something like that, then they usually make it. Houston was in the Final Four last year, perennial tournament team, usually top 10, 15 caliber, great tradition. BYU, perennial tournament team, good history, recent years, top 25, a couple years in a row. Cincinnati, and perennial tournament team. UCF improved over the past few years. So then you got, the Kansas State, which was only good with Michael Beasley there, and then TCU are kind of only okay, bad basketball teams, but every conference has that. But for the most part, though, and Ken Palm agrees with me here that this would be the best basketball conference, toughest basketball conference, hands down. So if you're the Big 12, like I said, it's no brainer to add BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF. Get the geographical footprint, the Midwest there in Ohio. Get the geographical footprint of UCF in Florida. You get the West market and BYU and their tradition and everything. So it just makes sense here. So thank you very much for listening to my podcast today. Please subscribe to my channel to learn about me. In my next podcast, I'll go over my top 10 games for this upcoming week. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful day.